Welcome to the Family Banking Show with your hosts Rob, Derek, and John, where we dive into the world of the infinite banking concept and discuss personal banking strategies to secure your legacy and build generational wealth. We're glad you're here, and we hope this episode serves you well.
If you're interested in learning more about setting up your own family banking system, send an email to thefamilybankingshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Family Banking Show. We are your hosts, Derek, Rob, and John. Guys, how are you this week?
Good. How you doing?
Not bad. I'm sure some people are a little stressed out of their mind, which is a very topical issue for us in today's episode. But John, how you doing?
Today my kids woke up at 7:45, which they're normally up at like 5:45.
Wow.
So I got just tons of time to read and think and pray and do all sorts of things that normally I don't have the space for in the morning. So yeah, it's a great start to the day at the very least. And
Yeah. Well, I know me and my wife are very jealous.
yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
a one-off. It's definitely not a consistent thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Then when they're teenagers, you've been trying to get them up before noon.
right.
All right. Well, guys, today our topic of interest is kind of current events, what's going on not only around the world, but in the stock market. For a lot of people who are interested in personal finance have an interest itself in the stock market. But today's really, topic is the peace of mind that comes from practicing infinite banking. So, John, let's start with you. Let's hear your perspective as to why infinite banking offers you and your family and your financial journey a little bit of stability and security.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that drew me to infinite banking just from the start was the amount of certainty and guarantees that you get through an incredibly volatile world that we live in. And that's definitely showing its its strength right now, where we don't know what's going to happen with the market. We don't know what's happening with tariffs, XYZ, but we do know very, very clearly what's happening with our policies and with our cash value and with the growth and the foundation that we have with operating from that position of strength, that we know it's not going to reduce in value 15% in 1 week or whatever we might be fearful of, that we can live a life peacefully, right? Like, I legitimately know someone in their 90s who's stressed out of their mind, just worried just every day about what's happening with the market, especially over the last couple, week or two. And all the way down to literally like high schoolers who are even worried about what that looks like for them as they, enter college and into the workforce and so forth. All from just a shaky foundation, and perhaps just a lack of understanding that there are other options that give you that base, that foundation that can weather these crazy uncertain times that we live in, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Like, it truly is. It's applying to all people right now, and that's what I just love about IBC, about whole life insurance specifically, and the guarantees and certainty that you get.
Yeah, it really does give you peace of mind. It's like, the contract, the infinite banking policy, the early cash value contract that you have, it's guaranteed to go up. It's part of the contract. Matter of fact, I use an illustration quite a bit of a 35-year-old healthy male, 25K per year. And I was just curious, like, what, you have the guaranteed part of the ledger, and then you have the non-guaranteed part of the ledger. The non-guaranteed part is, if the insurance company is profitable, it divides the profits and it sends them back to the policyholders. But I just ran the internal rate of return on the guaranteed, and factoring in taxes, it was 1.67% internal rate of return, assuming the company didn't pay out a single dollar in profits for the whole life of the policy. That's really good. I mean, that's an amazingly good base of guarantees. Where can you get 1.67% guaranteed every single year? but that's going to be better than that because the insurance company is going to be profitable and it's got to give those funds back. So like you're saying, John, just having that guaranteed contract that if I do my part, I pay my premium, and then the way we design it at the Family Banking Show, we design it so that it has paid up additions and base, so you get a lot of that cash comes back to you, or not back to you, but it's available as cash value that you can borrow against if you want to. So as long as you're paying your premium, it's guaranteed to go up, no matter what the stock market's doing or what the world's doing. And it's just that peace of mind that and then it's just that peace that comes with that it's very simple. You're not relying on the Wall Street for your future. And that just brings a lot of peace to me. So I'm totally in agreement with that.
Yeah, I think oftentimes IBC and whole life insurance in general as a savings instrument, kind of gets a knock on the early years of the policy where maybe that cash value isn't 100% accessible or equivalent to what your premium amount was. And I mean, there's been periods of time throughout history where the stock market has traded flat for several years, and it's
Mhm.
kind of the same way with IBC with the whole life insurance. Those first couple of years, it's kind of just a flat instrument for a while before it starts to really take off, and that's just part and parcel of how whole life insurance works. But the interesting thing that I was looking at this year or last night, sorry, was this is today we are living in what we call sequence of returns risk. And
Mhm.
this was something that Rob, I think you want to talk to a little bit more about is, if
Mhm.
you are reliant upon the stock market for your source of income in your retirement or passive years, whatever you want to call it, you are feeling a little extra sting right now if you're having to sell shares in order to earn the income that you need to support your lifestyle.
Mhm.
Whereas if you combine maybe a little bit of stock portfolio with life insurance, you have another instrument. You have the life insurance as your backstop for when the market does have these big dips. 12 to 15% is quite a big hit right now. Um, so one thing that I was looking at is, it all depends upon when did you start investing in the stock market? When did you start purchasing shares? And
Mhm.
I looked back all the way to the year 2000, which is kind of an interesting year. You're getting to the dot-com bubble and it's about to burst. But if you would have been buying shares all along this period of time from 2000 to current day, your average annual return was, maybe 3% because of all these dips, these ups and downs, and the sideways nature of the market for several years. 3% in the stock market on an average annual return is pretty pathetic, but we've always been trained and taught and told that it's, 8 to 10% per year, or some people say 12%, and it's just hard to fathom. And it all depends upon when you started investing and when you're starting to take income. So no, we don't take joy in the fact that some people's portfolio values have dropped and that they're, restricted as to what their income levels are. But what we are trying to do is to help illustrate and educate our listeners on, there's an alternative means to earning income in your retirement years. And one of those ways that we think is one of the best assets to hold is an IBC style life insurance policy. So Rob, I'll turn it back to you. Tell us a little bit more about, what your thoughts are on sequence of returns risk. And then John, if you have any other comments related to that as well.
Yeah, that's one of so I love the truth concepts calculators, and I was at a training a few months ago, and there's so many of those kind of presentations using the calculators, and it's all kind of based around how whole life insurance and utilizing the cash value strategically, how in the long run it exponentially benefits your family. And so there's so many like aha moments when you're seeing how the cash value can be used in retirement or used now for opportunities and that kind of thing. But one of the ones that really blew me away was, let's say you have a fixed. See, while we are all earning income in our working years, we are earning income, so we have income to replenish the dips. So they call that the accumulation phase. And then, or often we'll call it getting up the mountain, right? You're climbing up the mountain, you're accumulating wealth. And the stock market's a great tool and a process to use to accumulate wealth. But what people don't think about is getting down the mountain. And that's the distribution of wealth. So when you're going up the mountain, the dips are up and down, but you have income to backfill the dips. But when you're going down the mountain, you have no income other than selling the shares so if all you've done is accumulated shares through your life and you've got $4 million in your 401k based upon, in the stock market, and it's in shares. And all you have now is selling those shares to get income. When the market tanks like it has just recently, you have to sell more shares to get the same amount of income. So you start to accelerate exponentially the reduction of your shares. And so that reduces exponentially the time frame that you have dollars in retirement. And
Right.
so if you don't have a hedge against this kind of dip in the market, then you are forced to sell shares at an accelerated rate to get the same income, or you have to reduce the income. And so either way, it's not a good scenario. And so what that the calculator showed is that if you strategically borrow against your cash value during those times when the market's down and you sell shares when the market's high, the amount of annual income you can get more than what you are planning for, and the amount longer you can do it is it blew my mind how much more money you can take and how longer it can go. And I just think that it just right now is an important time because people don't think about it when times are good. Everyone thinks times are always going to be good. And so it's just an opportunity for just for us to just, educate our listeners and watchers that there is a hedge against times like this, and it's the cash value of your whole life insurance policy. So not only are you getting the death benefit protection to protect your family and to build legacy, generational legacy, but you have an asset that you can access during times like this that can offset and hedge against these dips. It's just such an important thing. I hope people, maybe now is the time when the light bulb will go off for a lot of folks and like, wow, maybe I should be diversifying in not only just in it's an amazing asset in and of itself, but when you realize how you can use it during these kind of times and the peace it gives you because of all the guarantees built in, it's really a game changer, I think, for families. And we're just trying to get that message across.
Yeah. There's a really helpful illustration of putting numbers to what you're saying, Rob, where if someone had $1 million in 2000, we'll say, when there were 3 consecutive years of double-digit losses,
Mhm.
and they had to take, say, 4 to 5% for income every year, the 20% loss is actually a 33% loss. So if you have $1 million, you're now down to
Mm.
like 666.
Yep.
You need a 50% like positive return the next year just to get back to 1 million, not to mention
Yeah.
have gains on what you originally started at. And not to mention 2 more years of double-digit losses. So that's a significant risk, especially for people in retirement. And the conventional advice out there, I was just watching the news when people are talking about the markets. They're like, well, just hang on there. It's always a long-term strategy and maybe just take a little less. And it's like you're planning to have uncertainty and likely a
Mm.
huge dip in your lifestyle, which you're probably already doing a dip in your lifestyle so that you don't run out of money. And, Warren Buffett's first rule is don't lose money. The second rule is
Mhm.
refer to rule number one. So
Mhm.
there's a reason for that. And it's because it's so difficult to overcome losses.
Right.
Having a steady growth, even if it's 1.6%, I would rather have than like a 25% loss, have to
Right.
use it, compound it down to like 30 or 40% loss, and then really need a 100% gain or whatever, a home run just to get back to break even. It's incredible what losses can do to you, especially over the long run.
Yeah.
And just think too about just that we were talking about the peace, right? That peace, you're emotionally in this roller coaster during that whole period, John. If that's what you're relying on, is that home run, to get you safely into retirement or to keep you safely longer into having a normal kind of expected income in retirement. The stress level there, it's like it doesn't have to be that way. And that's what we're trying to help folks.
Right. Yeah, I think, John, one of the interesting things that you're talking about is the compounded nature of the loss, right? And, that
Hmm.
got me to thinking of if you have a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA where you're getting the tax deduction today rather than in the future, if that's you, which is a large majority of Americans, um, okay, a 15 or 12% drawdown is not accurate. By the time you adjust for taxes, it's maybe more like 20%,
Yeah.
based on the gains that you've accumulated over time. So, yeah, just rethinking the way and the structure and the timing of when you do these things and having alternative assets to pivot to for when you need income when markets are down is such a big thing that I think is starting, the light bulbs are turning on for people finally that are realizing, oh, wait a minute, I need to have an additional source of income that gives me that guarantees the stability, security. You know, we have a mentor, a business mentor of ours, guys, and I was asking him how he was feeling about this week, and he's like, I don't have a dollar in the stock market, and I could care less what it does 10 months from now, even if it rebounds and it goes up 50%, he's like, I don't care. I know the volatility is going to be there at some point and it's going to cause stress in my life. And I just don't want that. So that's the cool thing about practicing IBC is not only are you gaining financial control, but you get that peace of mind, which, to have your wealth not tied solely on the performance of some stock or some CEO or some algorithm or computer trading system. Have something that's actually going to be there when you need it to be there the most. That's what IBC can offer you.
Yep.
Guys, any other final comments here before we wrap up today's kind of shortened episode?
Yeah, just like go back to the peace part. Just the piece of having that guarantee. It really there's a lot there. There's and maybe if folks who are kind of suffering through the stress of this time, it really hits home that it doesn't have to be that way. It's just smart. It makes smart. They say to diversify. It makes leverage the accumulation tools. Be smart about those, but don't forget the distribution tools, which is like annuities and life insurance, guaranteed products that can protect you in your retirement years. And the thing is, it's not. And we're kind of talking about like this this amazing feature of life insurance that it's great on its own. That's the thing that when you start to talk about life insurance, the protection you get on its own and the peace you get and the when you create it as we do, early cash value, infinite banking style, the cash value that you can leverage without interrupting the growth of the death benefit, without interrupting the growth of the policy. It's great in and of itself. It's great. But then when something like this happens, it really strikes home like, man, we have such an amazing asset that we can lean on. That's a foundation of our family that that's what drives us. That's why we want to share this with folks because people just don't realize that it's out there and it can help them.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll add to that is what we care most about is not necessarily having the most amount of money. We care
Hmm.
most about quality of life and living
Hmm.
to the fullest and living on purpose and on mission. And oftentimes finances can be a stumbling block to that. And so
Right.
if we find that peace and find that bedrock of foundational security, it gives us the freedom to do that. So that's the ultimate goal, and that's what we just love empowering people to do. And it's true in our lives, and we just love spreading the message of peace and just ability to live on mission to everyone.
Um,
Well said, guys. If you are interested in learning more about how to start a family banking system, how to start IBC, you reach out to us at thefamilybankingshow@gmail.com. Leave us a comment in one of our atmospheres wherever you're listening or hearing us talk. We'd love to engage with you there. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next episode.
you guys.
Thank you for joining us. If you're interested in a conversation about anything we've discussed, you can find our contact information in the show notes below.
And subscribe, follow, and leave a review to help spread this message and to help families across the country discover the generational blessing of IBC. May God bless you, and we'll see you next time.